Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline, and I will be your moderator for today. So let's get started. What are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that international companies have when entering the Asian markets?
People from outside of Asia think that English is actually widely spoken and understood. So marketing messages in English, are just fine. I think if I'm up to date on my research, Asia comprises roughly 50 countries and about 2,300 languages, with I think Chinese and Hindi being the most widely spoken. So, my advice, you have to translate, and not only translate, but also tailor and localize the message to communicate successfully.
As the freshest off the boat, no pun intended, what is the biggest surprise for you when you started working out here in Asia? And how did you and your organization adapt to that?
I think the biggest surprise for me so far, and I'm sure there's more around the corner, is that there's a real hunger for communication partnership. So as the person who's leading communication and is at an organization that works quite closely with philanthropic and governmental partners, we have found a great willingness to collaborate and find ways to communicate together for the benefit of both entities.
Talking about cultural nuances here, and one thing we can't really avoid out here in Asia is geopolitics, right? Dickson, you used to work at Twitter, which was kind of well known as a place for activism. How do you adapt your strategies?
I think all communicators now, we know that it's not just about growing audience, growing your revenue, but also managing your brand reputation with regulators, right? And so some regulators in the region are more willing to take a public position for or against your organization. Some prefer to do it behind closed doors. I think this is where you have to work very closely with your public policy colleagues and really figure out what's the right way to communicate this in public.
Sure, you've seen a lot of organizations struggling with the battle in terms of how to prioritize the localization, especially of global brand messaging, and then trying to balance, maintaining that global identity in such a diverse Asian environment, right? So what kind of advice do you have here?
I think you should use your brand voice as a foundation, but maintain flexibility in your language, your tone, to suit different mediums. Give you a few examples, right? Wording. I work a lot with companies on their purpose, vision, values, and some words like a value can't just simply be translated, let's say, word for word in Japanese, because the meaning then might actually be not what you want to convey. So you have to have a bit of room for adjustment here while maintaining, obviously, your corporate values, for example.
But I think the customization, the localization part is really about how you tell the story. And that's really through cultural moments, user voices, local data, right? All that ladders up still into the same brand message, right? Your company's purpose, why people should use it. But how you tell the stories locally is where, again, people can decide, use that creativity and figure it out.
So how should companies really approach building these relationships, especially with the media, and then, while trying to uphold their core values?
So as communications professionals, right, our job is to build those relationships, those media relationships, tell them our side of the story, build some trust there so that we can balance out those stories, right? You're not always gonna get the positive story, right? But as professionals, our job is really to, let these media know that we're not here to conquer, right? We're here to be part of society, to contribute to the success of the country as well, and bring value to users and businesses.
I've seen how Ocean X having a strong social media presence and doing a lot in this area. So what is your strategy in managing this Asian landscape?
We have to take a bit of a different approach as we grow and as we enter new markets. But one thing that's been key for us is to identify the local influencers who are really respected and mission aligned, and to work with them. Use their megaphones to help get our story out there, and to also build that relationship with them so they understand the work that we're doing. So I think that has been helpful for us. We are looking at translation models. That is key. I think that's something that we can bring into our existing channels without adding additional channels right away. But it's a long-term approach that we have to take in terms of our capacity to support all of these channels in the right strategic way with the right language adaptations. And so for us, it's working with the people who already have that audience and see how we can adapt our message through their channels.
So maybe one final question to really wrap up before we move into Q&A is if we could quickly go around to all three of you and really, share your experiences for market entry into Asia. Any tips?
Right now, my biggest tip is to stay humble. Really lean on local partners, local agencies. Make sure you have the local expertise supporting you, because there is a lot to learn, and you shouldn't go into Asia thinking you know it all.
Being aware that there is no one size fits all and that there are differences. I think that's half of the journey on the road to success.
My tip is just understanding truly understand what is the business objective you want to achieve coming into Asia, and that'll dictate which countries you go to and the strategies you want to take from a comms perspective.